Hey, what is up, mortals? It is I, Keishan VA, here with a new video for you today. Welcome to part 2 of What If Kaminari Got OFA. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So, we begin. For 9 months, Denki and All Might spent 2 hours a day on weekdays and 6 hours a day on school-free days at their secret beach in order to train the boy's body and make the beach look nicer as well. As Kaminari had come to learn, this beach was called Dogaba Beach Park, and it was once famous for how pristine the waters were. Alas, as sea pollution became an increasingly bigger problem, all kinds of things from plastic bottles and cans to rusted appliances began washing up there, causing the beach to become neglected as fewer people visited it. But now, as the beach became more and more clean, people started flocking to it all over again, revitalizing its popularity once more. Unfortunately, Denki almost had a serious issue that came about as a result of all these outings. Fortunately, he'd been able to resolve it fairly easily, but he still remembered how much trouble he'd almost been in. "What do you mean, Gramps? What's the problem with me going to the beach every day?" After having returned from yet another training session, he'd been angrily dragged to his grandmother's room via telekinesis, where she proceeded to lecture him about spending too much time at that beach. "You've been vanishing every day for almost 3 months," Tatsumaki screeched. "It was fine when you wanted to spend your weekends and days off there. You're young, and you've been getting your schoolwork done. But it's not okay for you to be actively going out of your way to get there. The other day, I heard your mother lament that you lied about having dinner with your friends so that you could go get to that beach again. She'd called them and had been told that you weren't even invited over in the first place." Denki flinched as he realized how bad it probably looked at an outsider's point of view. I can explain every. "And what's with these muscles of yours?" his grandmother interrupted him. "They weren't there before. Don't tell me you've been taking steroids there." No, that's not it," he screamed as his face turned red with exasperation. "Look, I'm not doing drugs or anything. I'm just, well, I'm, I'm training with All Might." His grandmother's eyes widened in disbelief, as if her grandson had just said something ludicrous. "Come again?" she demanded. "Secretary, I've been training with All Might's secretary ever since that penis villain incident. He saw what I did and offered to help coach me to get into UA. With All Might's permission," he explained. "And just what exactly is it that you do with All Might's secretary?" she questioned. "Well, he's been having me clean up the beach we've been going to, both as a means of training and community service," the young boy replied. Needless to say, his grandmother, having lived for nearly 70 years, wasn't stupid. It was clear that this twerp had been hesitant to tell the truth either because he was lying or because All Might's secretary wasn't really supposed to be teaching him like this. If she were being honest, someone like Denki would definitely brag about getting trained by someone like that. So her first thought was that it was a lie, but in the 3 months he'd been heading to the beach, he definitely seemed happier and was obviously getting stronger. Logically speaking, it was unlikely that he was actually doing drugs or anything of the sort. And perhaps doing something without a tangible reward like community service had humbled him, if that were the case. "Then you wouldn't mind taking your grandfather with you tomorrow, would you?" "I mean, sure, but why?" Denki inquired. It wasn't so much that he minded bringing his grandfather along, because all he would have to do is text All Might beforehand and just ask him to omit any details about OFA when they were talking about the workout plan. But he was curious as to why his grandmother wanted to send her husband instead of herself. Tatsumaki crossed her arms as she hovered in the air. "Because, if it seems like something's wrong, your grandfather's less likely to cause widespread damage. As great as I am, even I'm prone to causing property damage with my quirk when I get overly emotional." "Ah, right. Gramps doesn't have that problem because he's just got a strength quirk." Kaminari grinned. "Well, it's fine either way. I'll just let Mr. Yagi know that Gramps will be joining us tomorrow." "Huh, whatever. Just make sure you don't forget him tomorrow." "You both know I'm right here, right?" From the kitchen just beside them, Saitama made his presence known to the two of them, scaring the daylights out of both of them. Then, before either of them could react, he got up while still holding his cup of tea and proceeded to walk back to his room. Did you know that he was not a clue? Screw the super strength. His real quirk is invisibility. The next day, Kaminari had introduced his grandfather to Mr. Yagi, resulting in the two quickly becoming good friends. And he silently thanked God that he called Toshinori All Might's secretary, because there was no way he would have been allowed to continue with an All Might that looked like a degenerate most of the time. Back in the present day, Kaminari was looking at the result of his handiwork when Small Might came up to him. It's beautiful, isn't it? The man said as he gazed upon the results of his protege's efforts. Sure is, Kaminari muttered, the sight stunning him into silence. It had definitely been a lot of work, to the point that Denki had first assumed it to be impossible to fully clean the beach. But as the months rolled on, his muscles got stronger, and the heavy lifting got easier and easier, and after 9 grueling months here, he could finally see why All Might wanted the place restored. The waters were crystal clear, the sands were pristine, and the sun rays glistened as he took it all in. In short, it looked like a resort location. After a while, Toshinori felt the need to break the silence. So, you've actually finished 3 days early. This was supposed to take you until the UA entrance exam was starting, but we've got a bit of time. And since you've built the necessary strength to handle one for all, what do you say I give it to you now and you spend the last bit of time practicing with it? About that. Kaminari turned and began rubbing the back of his head, making All Might slightly worried. I've been thinking about that, and I kinda want to try the entrance exam without using one for all. I mean, I still intend on taking up the mantle of Symbol of Peace and all. I just want to see if I can make it on my own first. Oh, I see. All Might beamed. Gotta admit, I wasn't a bit worried that you were going to reject the quirk entirely. But don't worry, there's nothing wrong with getting it later. You'll just need to work on it during the school year when you do get it. Well, that's a relief. I was kinda worried you'd get personally insulted if I didn't take it before the exam. Ha! All Might cackled. I'd have been more upset if you just rejected it entirely. There's no issue with you wanting to get in on your own merit, young Kaminari. For now. Why don't you just take it easy before the tests start? Oh, don't worry. I'm certainly exhausted right now, he replied, right before collapsing into the sand. I'm starting to notice that he becomes completely immobilized after reaching his limit. I hope this doesn't become a trend that continues into his school year. Toshinori thought to himself as he picked the young boy up and carried him back to his truck. Those 3 days came and went fairly quickly, as Denki mainly slept through all of them, and Kaminari found himself in a giant auditorium along with all of the other applicants to the hero course. They were currently being given the rundown by Present Mike, a hero that was overly loud and perfect as an announcer. In short, he was one of the coolest heroes there was. All right, little listeners, for today's exam, there are 3 types of robots that you need to destroy to score points. Robots worth 1 point, robots worth 2 points, and robots worth 3 points. You can probably guess, but the more robots you destroy, the higher the chances you'll... Excuse me? Someone called out from the crowd. What's up, Home Slice? The boy pointed to the handout they'd all been given, looking quite indignant. On this handout, there are actually 4 robots. If this is some sort of error, then doesn't it reflect poorly on UA? Oh, don't worry, I was getting to that, Mike said as the screen behind him shifted to a silhouette of a different looking robot. This is the 0 pointer, an obstacle that gives you no rewards whatsoever. It's better to just ignore it rather than fight it. Thank you. The boy bowed before sitting down. Now then, that's about everything I wanted to say here. But one last thing before you go. In the words of the great Napoleon, plus ultra! The auditorium erupted into cheers as the students began shuffling to their buses. As Denki sat down in his seat and waited to arrive at Area D, he couldn't help but notice a cute-looking girl with pink skin and horns sitting on the other side of the bus. He was so enraptured by her that he completely missed a smaller boy with what looked like grapes for hair beside him looking at her with equal interest. She's pretty cute, huh? The grape-headed boy asked him as they continued looking at her. Hell yeah! Denki muttered before realizing that he didn't know this guy. Wait, who are you? The other boy turned to face him. Name's Mineta.
But our names aren't important here. What's important is the fact that she's gonna run off when the exam starts. So we should take in the sight of her now.
Name's Kaminari. And you're completely right! Denki agreed as they both turned back to the girl and sat in silence until they arrived at their designated city. Unbeknownst to either of the two boys, they'd get to meet a lot of other girls in the coming months, assuming that they made it past the entrance exam here. This video is sponsored by Adobe. Adobe is redefining the digital experience through game-changing innovations that shape the next generation of storytelling. Adobe makes it easy to create, edit, and share digital documents securely, allowing you to collaborate and communicate across devices. Adobe Photoshop is your go-to application for faster graphics, editing, and digital art as a whole. At We the Celestials, all our thumbnails across every channel are created with Adobe Photoshop. Adobe Premiere Pro is a timeline-based and non-linear video editing software application that is versatile and easy for beginning and master editors. Finally, Adobe After Effects is the industry-standard tool for digital visual effects and compositing applications used in post-production. Many of our voice actors, audio editors, and video editors use Premiere Pro and After Effects to produce these high-quality videos. Click the link in the description to start creating now, and thank you to Adobe for sponsoring this video.
Thunder!
Kaminari shouted as he fired a lightning bolt at yet another robot and destroyed it.
Thunder! Thunder!
He screamed to the heavens as he let out an area of effect attack that took out 6 robots at once. Needless to say, he was feeling ecstatic as he racked up more and more points.
I am about to throw up!
And he was about to pass out from straining himself. He'd been neglecting his quirk training while building up his muscles, and it was coming back to bite him. Granted, electrification wasn't exactly useful when cleaning up giant piles of metal, but perhaps it would have been beneficial to ask All Might to incorporate a quirk training regimen, in addition to the original workout plan, even if he probably wouldn't have been able to stick to it.
Human detected. Prepare to be eliminated.
As he was hunched over and close to hurling, he noticed a one-pointer charging at him. If he kept wasting power on these small fries like he'd been doing, then he'd fry his brain before the exam ended, but he was feeling a bit dizzy now. If he didn't use his quirk to defend himself, then he wouldn't be able to take a moment to rest. But before he could make up his mind, the robot was caught by a sudden onslaught of purple balls flying towards it, stopping the machine in its tracks.
How'd you expect any woman to like you when you have to get rescued all the time, Kaminari?
Mineta? Kaminari called out in surprise as he saw the boy from earlier holding one of those purple balls that just saved him.
Thanks for the assist, man!
Mineta smirked.
Not even a problem for a guy like me. Guess it just comes to great people like me. Or it's God's attempt to make up for your pathetic stature,
Denki retorted, making the boy scowl at him.
You jerk! Don't expect any help from me again,
he yelled before running past him in search of more robots.
Yeah, maybe that was a little harsh of me. I'll apologize after we get done if I don't see him again.
Kaminari mused as he stood back up and started moving again. Back inside, the teachers stood in the control room where they observed all 4 areas. Though they had differing opinions of the potential students, the prevalent thought was that there was lots of potential all around, although a man in the back might have disagreed with that consensus.
Well, we're about 2/3 of the way through the exam. Is this the part where we release the 0-pointer?
Receiving a nod from the principal, the man who looked and sounded like All Might proceeded to push a button that released the so-called useless obstacles onto the exam centers. As the ground began rumbling, Kaminari got a little freaked out. Was this someone's quirk? If so, then the competition was pretty fierce. But so long as he continued racking up points, Denki was sure he could still—
Kaminari, run!
Almost toppling him over, Mineta pushed past the blonde boy in a desperate bid to reach the exit. In his wake, he left behind a very freaked out Kaminari.
The crap was that about?
His question was answered before he finished asking it, as a giant shadow suddenly came over him. As he looked up, he understood what was happening. The 0-pointer had come.
Ah!
Denki screamed bloody murder as he ran away from the behemoth of an enemy that would have flattened him if he stayed still. His screaming was pretty girly, but he didn't care about that at all. Right now, as he easily caught up with Mineta, he could only think about getting away from that titan behind him. Alas, reality is often cruel. a fact that both boys would soon figure out, as in their panic states, neither of them noticed the three-pointer flying at them until it was too late. Sapphire! It cried out as it launched itself at Mineta, who responded by throwing his sticky hair balls at the nuisance. Unfortunately, as the balls stuck to the robot and hit its eternal wiring, the damage caused it to stop in an awkward position that brought it crashing down on top of Mineta. Pinned, he could only scream out to the blond boy that had shot right past him.
Ah! Kaminari! Help me!
Kaminari skidded to a stop as he whipped his head around and saw his little friend stuck under one of the robots while the zero-pointer closed in on him. At their current distance, Kaminari could make it to the exit by leaving Mineta behind. This was a school-made exam after all, and it was unlikely that anyone would get seriously hurt. But he couldn't just let someone potentially die just so that he could save himself from a very possible threat.
Hold on, man! I'm coming!
Denki cried as he raced back to his new friend. As he got to him, he noticed a major issue right away. The balls were still stuck to the robot in a multitude of places, and he'd probably get himself stuck if he'd tried lifting the hunk of metal without knowing where to touch.
Hey, I need you to tell me where not to touch. I can't help you if you get stuck. Yeah, I got it. First of all, try to reach right around me. There aren't any balls there, and I might be able to help you lift the rest of it if you could free me.
Kaminari nodded as he placed his hands around Mineta and tried lifting. Surprisingly, the robots weren't as heavy as he thought they might be. No doubt a perk of his recent fitness regimen. Unfortunately, it was really awkward to move like this. He could barely lift a thing.
Hey, can I move yet?
Denki grunted.
Yeah, let me help you out here.
Mineta replied as he began pushing the robot up and allowing Denki to shift his arms to a more comfortable position. With two people pushing it, the machine fell onto its back with no issue. While the duo wanted to high-five each other over their shared success, there was no time for that.
Screw it! Let's jet!
Kaminari cried as he hoisted the smaller boy over his shoulder and began sprinting to the exit with him in tow, barely outrunning the debris caused by their colossal adversary. And just before they made it back,
and that's time!
President Mike bellowed to the stars as he announced the end of the exam as the zero-pointer stopped without warning. Collectively, both boys shared the same thought.
Oh, thank God that's over!
While both boys were busy celebrating their continued existences, they failed to notice that from another side of the testing center, the same pink-skinned girl from earlier was watching them.
Hey, did you get your results yet?
After the entrance exam had concluded, Mineta and Kaminari had exchanged phone numbers and been keeping in touch via texting and phone calls. On this particular day, about a week after their first meeting, Mineta had asked about Kaminari's acceptance letter.
No, I haven't heard anything. You? Nada. Just how long do we have to wait?
The boy sounded annoyed. Denki merely smiled at his friend's annoyance.
Can't say, but I'm sure we'll be hearing back from them soon. The term starts in a week, right? We'll have to know before then. Yeah, you're right. Oh, before I go, I should tell you, Mount Lady is going to be doing an interview tonight detailing the making of her costume with pictures!
Denki blushed as he thought about such an interview.
Well, hang up already so I can look it up.
With a final laugh, Mineta disconnected and left the blond boy to his own device. Before he could look it up, however, he heard a knock at the door.
Dang it, what now?
He thought to himself as he made his way to the entrance.
Coming!
He opened the door to find a delivery bag on the welcome mat. Just as he was bending over to pick it up, he noticed that his mailbox looked slightly jammed, as if a package had arrived. Leaving the delivery bag for later, he swiftly made his way to the mailbox and took out the package. It was an envelope addressed to him, from UA.
It's here!
He thought as he raced back to his room, grabbing the delivery bag on his way back. His parents and grandparents were out for the day, something about going to a temple. That meant he had the entire house to himself right now, so he wouldn't be interrupted while gleaming the contents of the envelope. As he opened the envelope and poured the contents onto his desk, he excitedly opened the bag of food. Ordinarily, he wouldn't have opened it without letting his family know, but the bag contained a pack of takoyaki, which only All Might knew he liked, and just to make sure, he checked the note on the bag and saw that it was addressed to him. Without reading any further, he popped one into his mouth while the video projector started playing. The recording was a video of All Might telling him his results. Good afternoon, young Kaminari. There are lots of things I'd like to say to a potential student like yourself, but I'm sure you're anxious to hear your results, so I'll get right to it. Now, You scored fairly well on the written portion with a score of 88%, but as I'm sure you know, the real meat and potatoes is in the practical, and you earned a nice score of 31 villain points, as well as 31 rescue points from your daring escape with young Minetta, resulting in a grand score of 69 points.
What? There was rescue points too? And I got 69 in total? Well, how good is that, All Might?
Denki screamed at the recording as he stuffed his face with takoyaki. Fortunately, the video continued. With such a score, you've passed the exam with flying colors. Congratulations, young Kaminari. Your Hero Academia starts here.
Yes! Yeah! I did it! Woo!
In his joyous stupor, he tripped over his own chair and knocked over the gift basket from All Might. As he was laughing with joy, he took a look at the note that came with it and decided to read it in its entirety, since it was probably a note of congratulations. Dear young Kaminari, congratulations on getting into the hero course! As you've no doubt come to figure out from your acceptance video, I'll be teaching there this year, so we'll have lots of chances to let you own one for all during the coming months. In the meantime, please enjoy this gift basket filled with a variety of foods for you to enjoy. P.S. Speaking of one for all, since you previously seemed unnerved by the idea of ingesting my DNA, I decided to handbrake it into one of the takoyaki so that you could get it without noticing it. Cheers, All Might.
Huh?
Denki mumbled as he looked at the box of takoyaki that was now completely empty. His face paled as he rushed to the bathroom, trying and failing to get his body to vomit up the food he'd just eaten. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now there are a few things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, I'd like to thank our patrons, BD Flames, Ethan Davis, Terry Chills, Shifter Meals, Adam Zagil, Zill, ZaveBeat03, and Joshua Phelps. Secondly, I'd also like to thank all of our YouTube members, Toya Costa, Rob the King, Sith Lord 906, CF2364, and Knuckles, Rimuru Tempest, Angel Juarez, Donald C. Stewart, Bryant Greer, and Demonized Fox. Thirdly, if you're in for the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has got you covered. Our We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake animes with a twist. Check them out if you're interested. Fourthly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in today's excellent content production. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, I'd like to extend an invitation for you to join the team. The only caveat is that we only accept members from 16 plus to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for new members to join us. Well, that's it for us for today's video. I'm Keishan VA. Thank y'all for watching, and have a great day.